Oh, the vibes are high on this Friday, not just because we got Coach Mac's music. We got Jeff Fisher, former Titans head coach, now working with the Nashville Cats. We got Greg Pogue in studio as well. It is a crowded operation in here. Jackson, let's make sure we got everybody's microphones on. Gentlemen, it is so great to have you in today.
Thanks, Buck.
Yeah, thanks, Buck. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got you say it's crowded in here. It's going to be crowded outside all weekend. I mean, you got a marathon, right? We got a hockey game, and we got our stuff.
Remember the marathon fish when we're in that little building up there, and they'd always run by the building, and we'd have to park, get there early so we would.
Oh yeah, it was back then. It was a country music. I ran it. I forget what year it was. I did it.
Yeah.
I only did it once, but I had a blast doing it. But yeah, they would run by it usually coincide with draft week.
It's exactly the same time.
You ever have anybody show up late to work because they got their car towed because of the marathon over at Metro Center?
No, we made sure everybody that was involved in the draft was there really early.
Is it always draft weekend?
Yeah.
Forgot about the marathon.
How could you forget about the marathon?
Add it to the list.
What you can't forget about is the Nashville Cats have their home opener this weekend at Municipal Auditorium. TheNashvilleCats.com for more information. They're also having a block party that is free for all to attend. Music, food, drinks before the game. It's going to be an electric time. We'll let you guys tell the crowd everything that they need to know more here in just a little bit. But, Mac, I guess I'll start with you since you were on the Titans radio draft coverage. J.C. Latham, 7th overall to the Tennessee Titans. The tackle out of Alabama seems to be the exact kind of guy that Rand Carthon and Bill Callahan and Brian Callahan were looking to add to this group.
How many drafts we've been together, Fish? A lot. A bunch.
More than that, yeah.
More than a lot. And there's no National Football League team that goes into the draft thinking we're going to take somebody we don't like, or we're going to take somebody that won't help us. Now, as I said, I told you guys when I came in, the easiest job in America to fill is a head coach in the National Football League and a general manager, because everybody in America is one, and everybody's got an opinion, and everybody, but you come out of it with a good player. And Fish, what's going on up there now, it's a lot like you were your whole tenure here. When you had Mike Munchak as your offensive line coach, you trusted him implicitly. I mean, I've been in all of those meetings, those draft meetings, and it pays off. It pays off because those guys can get guys that they know they can develop, and I think that's what we've got going on now.
So what you're saying, Mac, is that if the head coach's dad was a receiver coach, they'd taken a receiver.
I think Bill wants to see Brian do well, and I think he knows how to set him up for success.
Yes, there's nobody. Oh, there's a few, but I mean, Bill make it work. And I heard a little bit of stuff this morning about he hadn't played left, and he's been on right. And come on, they're gonna
please.
Bill's gonna get that thing figured out. What's interesting to me is I looked back a few years ago. Remember, Cincinnati Bengals got Burrow. Okay, what did they do the next year? All offseason, it was going to be a tackle. We got to get a tackle in here. We got to protect him, da-da-da-da-da. And then last minute, what'd they do? They go after the receiver. 2 years later, they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to do
Absolutely.
it. Obviously, they understand the importance of that as well. We all do. You got to get weapons, but you also got to. I mean, you got a lot of holes, Mac. You watched it, and obviously,
yes.
I don't have to tell you, but the weapons are coming. They're coming. But yeah, this sounds like it's going to be a great pick.
Well, and that's Coach Fisher just talking to people within the organization last night after the pick was made, and a little more this morning. The feedback was we needed both. We need both to help at both tackles. You can only make one pick there. It's our job as a coaching staff. It's our job as an organization to put the player in the best position to succeed. And that seems to be where fans who might be wringing their hands a little bit about the idea of right tackle having not played left at his last stop. Not that he's unfamiliar. He's practiced. He's taken reps there. He played there in high school. It's not completely foreign to him.
No, and let's not forget, you've got tight ends and backs and different protections, and you can help offensive linemen. I mean, that's obviously what they had to do the last couple of years here, but you can get them help early on, and then they develop. And hey, you got a guy there that becomes just rock solid for years and years.
No, absolutely, and a lot of the Titans right now are in a situation, Fish, that we were in. After you guys went to the Super Bowl and tried and kept that team together for a while, and then all of a sudden the salary cap crushes you. And now you've got to start working it back. And I say this and reference this all the time. We did it much in the same way, and then 3 years later, it's 13-3 and the number one seed in the league. So you just got to make good decisions, and you've got to have good coaches coaching up the ball players that you have. You just have to make it work.
Yeah, you got to have a plan.
Got to have a plan. There you go.
You got to have a plan. You got to understand it, and you got to be ahead of everything. And sometimes things happen, and sometimes guys don't work out. But if you can stay ahead, a couple years ahead, then at least you got a chance. And right now, ahead for the Titans is improvement. That's what that is.
TheNashvilleCats.com is where you can go to find out more information about arena football making its return to Nashville this Saturday, their home opener at Municipal Auditorium. Coach Jeff Fisher in studio with us. He's serving as a senior advisor for the club. Coach Dave McGinnis also here as well. We're also very happy to have Greg Pogue in studio, though he declined the opportunity to speak in front of a microphone. Greg, I know you can talk. I know you're capable.
I mean, Jeff Fisher and Coach Mack, I don't, I'm like brown socks with a tuxedo right now, okay, with these guys.
Everybody needs socks. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. For the two of you guys, the team building process, I feel like, at least from my perspective, it would be easy as a coach to just get locked in on, all right, who can I get to get me to the next win, the next game, the next opponent, the next opportunity, as opposed to, the parallel to the team building process, which is much more of a slow burn. How did you guys kind of work through that process together? And was that initial for you, or is that something that you came to learn more about throughout the course of your careers?
Well, first off, you have to understand, both systems, free agency and the draft, and then you have to do your best to pair them up and marry them. And so all that starts, the year before. So you've got the data the year before you go into the offseason of what kind of draft it is, where the strengths are, the drafts, provided that these juniors come out, and then who's potentially going to hit free agency. And so are they fits, are they not? How do we start putting the pieces of the puzzle together? So, and on top of that, who do we have that's young that we can develop that still just hasn't gotten a shot? And, bottom line is how do we minimize the players' weaknesses? Turn those weaknesses into strengths, and those are those guys on your roster. So there's a lot of moving parts. You got to pair them up, and you got to move forward. And this is you got this stuff going on today, tomorrow. You've got free agency immediately after, which is traditionally referred to it as round 7 through 12 or 15, and then you've got camp, and you've got cuts, and you got movement. So you got to be up. You got your personnel people have to be up and dead on with every player in the league, players that that's been here, that are moving around, so you can still make decisions. And then, of course, Matt can talk about it, how important it is to constantly work on the bottom part of your roster.
And that's the thing that I learned. And I learned it from him. Of course, I'd known Fish forever, back since the Bear days. But when I got my head job, one of the first guys I called was Jeff Fisher. And I said, hey, look, I need some help with some nuances of what's going on here, because I took over a place there in Arizona that was not good. And he spent 3 hours on the phone, said, go get a pad. He said, call me back in an hour. And we went through just a big timeline, and he's 100% right. And all the years that I was with him, always had a plan, always had a forward-looking plan, but was always able to adjust, because no plans ever go exactly like you think they're going to. But if you're able to pivot in critical moments, and at the end of the day, still be able to win a game and then continue to stay on the plan, that's what it is. But you have to have a vision for it, and you have to have patience. And I learned that from him too.
How different is this morning and the lead up to day 2 versus the morning of the first round, when no names have been called, maybe most of the hay's in the barn, and you're crossing T's, dotting I's? How different is the preparation for the coaching staff leading into day 2 of the draft?
Let me tell you a story real quick. I got him sitting right here to my right.
Hostage situation.
Back one of the years when Jeff and I were drafting together, the first 3 rounds were on the first day. And we'd gone through those first 3 rounds, and Jim Schwartz was our defensive coordinator, and I was in there with Schwartz because we needed a linebacker. And we'd already had a meeting, and they had a guy up on the board, and Fish came down and said, hey, they've got a linebacker, for the pick for the next day. here's who it is. Are you guys good with that? And Schwartzy and I both went, no. Fish, we've got a guy right here, but he's a little undersized. And Fish went, give me the, because he watches all the tape. He said, well, give me your best tape on him. And so, we watched him, and then again, this is trusting your coaches and also being able to pivot, because the board had been set. And Fish goes back upstairs and says, look, here's the guy we want. Here's the guy we think will be better for us. It was Stephen Tulloch. It was Tully in the 4th round. And all of a sudden, you bring a guy in there that, he didn't have a great combine, because he probably did. He didn't train for it, I know. But all of a sudden ended up being a, 10, 12-year player, and a good player, for us. But that to me comes from, being able to pivot at the moment. And I always remembered that. And when I became a head coach, I always remembered that, to listen, especially in those moments, because the second day, which now is rounds 2 and 3, is different. And teams are putting things together last night and then early this morning, thinking of who they'd like to go get. So,
yeah, and back to your question, round 1. And okay, what we got? Just 2 and 3.
2 and 3 today.
2 and 3 today. You got teams down there sitting, kind of redoing their mock drafts all over, and we're going to go through the second round. You got people up the top that are fielding phone calls, up and probably till they're on the clock, about people wanting to get up, and they're talking about getting down. And then, so you're setting up those potential trade scenarios and things like that if your guy's not there. This will be a time to look at those teams that don't have a pick in the second round, to see what they're going to do to try to get up there. Teams that have multiple picks may drop back to pick up. It's just, so you're going to kind of watch it, and a lot of this stuff is going to get handed in, pretty close to kickoff this evening. It's going to be late, and you're going to have to make sure your board's right and your picking orders and all those kind of things are correct. But right now, it's I would imagine that they've got their one coming in and waiting on number 2 and 3, and they'll be all in here in a couple days. And you're just doing all those behind the scenes things as you actually select the players. So we had one, to counteract or give you the other side of Mac's story, where, hey, you go in there and look at somebody and go, oh yeah, we drafted him, shoot, he plays for 10 years. We had one slip away from us in St. Louis.
Yes, we did.
And it was just one of those things that happened. We had some turnover and some da-da-da-da-da. But I take responsibility for it, because I saw the kid play against my son in Auburn, and I've made a mental note, and then 8 months later get into the draft, and I didn't remember. And the kid's name was Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, he's still out there, still running around.
Yeah, but what happened was, it was like, okay, we find out a day ahead of time, we might have this guy a little bit low. So we go in, we're scrambling around watching tape, and so we moved him up on the board, and da-da-da-da-da. We climbed him way up on the board, but we didn't climb him high enough on the board.
Yeah, it's just never a perfect science, and there's so many of those stories for as long as you guys and everybody else who's been involved in the league for as long as they may be. It's never an exact science. And it almost seems to me, at least from an outsider, I've never been in a draft room. You covered this for a couple of years, but not with the firsthand experience that the two of you have. By the way, Jeff Fisher, Coach Dave McGinnis in studio with us. TheNashvilleCats.com is where you can find out more about what Coach Fisher is doing with the Nashville Cats organization. Arena football back with the home opener on Saturday. The idea that this is just so subjective still after so much time, and that it varies not just from coaching staff to coaching staff or front office to front office, but that there's that kind of internal conflict that's good, that's necessary for you to try and work towards a resolution, but it's still so subjective at the end of the day.
It does, and when you can't agree to disagree, then you sit down and you watch. And to me, this has been, and this is just an observation, and I may be wrong, but I think overall personnel people are watching less and less tape or of games. And I'm not talking about GMs and people, but what happens is there's so much information out there. How many mock drafts could you guys have pulled together and then just put them together and had your draft off the mock drafts? You got to get, as Max says, in the weeds, and you got to watch the kid. and we got to watch them against good competition. And you just don't watch the game. You got to watch them against good competition. You got to watch them early, middle, and late, and then you formulate and go from there. So there's a lot of guys running down the hall right now around the league, putting some kids in to just brush up, or, okay, hey, we're between, if this happens, if we're picking 6 and we got both these guys, we're all in agreement, this is our guy, and somebody says, I think we need to also consider so-and-so, and if that conversation evens them out, you're going to have to sit down and look at them and have further discussions.
Absolutely.
But the one thing that Matt was important to Mac and I as we went through it is when we make the pick, when we grab the card off the board, and we get the kid on the phone, and he answers, and we turn the pick in, it's our pick. It's everybody's pick. It's the guy at the guard gate in front of the facilities pick as well. This is our guy. We did this together. We're 100% behind this pick as an organization.
There it is.
23 offensive players go in the first round last night out of 32 first-round picks. Now, I don't think that's necessarily an indictment of like defense and the state of defense in the league, just speaking to the depth at respective positions in the draft, but the premium placed on offensive line, wide receiver, or skill player, and quarterback, with 6 going in the first round last night. How do you guys, as two guys who have had such a deep depth of knowledge and experience on the defensive side of the ball, is this an anomaly, do you think, or this is where we're trending with the talent and state of the league?
Let me answer that first, because I'm still digging deep into the draft. This is my 39th draft, and we put a board together that's the talent this year at the receiver and the tackle position was phenomenal. It really was. I mean, you had 10 offensive tackles that you're looking at going, and of course, I still go to the combine and watch all the drills and do all the stuff and talk to the coaches. This was an unusual group. And here's the other thing: you had 6 quarterbacks go. As I've always said, there's 2 drafts. There's a quarterback draft, and then there's everybody else. But you have 6 quarterbacks go. All of a sudden, that takes your numbers. But the numbers of elite players are first-round grades. I had 18 first-round grades in this draft, but was at the offensive line and the receiver position. So it pushed really good. We had, during the draft show, Mike Keith went, Mac, he said, what about these defensive players? I said, well, whoever picks the first defensive player will get the best one on their board because they're all still there. It was just an unusual year for talent.
Yeah, see, here, this is what happens now, this is when the runs start, okay? So you don't have any defensive players off the board. There's 4 teams in the bottom half of this round that need their corner. They need corner, for example. And then all of a sudden the first corner goes and the second corner goes. Well, what are they doing? They're panicking. They're going to try to get up to get a corner, because once the run starts, it can thin out really quickly, position by position. So that's something just to kind of watch mid-round 2,
Sure.
round 3, because those runs will start, and then everything's going to balance itself out after it. And once you get to the middle of the 3rd round, you're going to see some specialists go probably in the middle of the 3rd round too, as well, because of the needs.
Something that's happened, Fish, that was different than anything you and I experienced. The belly of the draft has gotten thinner for this draft, for 2 reasons. The NIL, these guys are making money now to stay in school. And so that group is staying in longer. And so when you really started looking at the positions, because this is not a rich draft in running backs. There wasn't a running back with a first-round grade in this draft. There's not a safety with a first-round grade, Fish, in this draft. And it's thinned out. So to your point, when the run starts, you better have your board set and be cognizant of the hemisphere around you and be able to move up, because it thins out really quick this year.
And when the runs start, if you get in the middle or the end of it, you're going to end up reaching. And that's when you have a problem. You're going to panic, and you're all of a sudden, well, I know we had a 4th round grade on him, and, in your high 3rd round, and you go, but he's the only one left. Okay, so what's right here? What's your board? Or if our board's right, we got to go over here to a different position and hope to do something there. But that's when it gets interesting. So Yeah.
Get a little hectic in the draft rooms the next couple of days. Coach Jeff Fisher, Coach Dave McGinnis.
Excuse me, you ever had anybody say that our board wasn't right?
not once at a press conference that I've been in. Not just
that
yet.
Question, then.
I think the question comes up every year, but no, everybody stick to their guns on that.
You'll keep asking, though.
Absolutely. That's the job. The state of pro sports in Nashville, arena football coming back. Coach Fisher, why was it so important for you to be a part of this? Because you've been a part of football at every level in this city in really, really unique ways. And the Cats, again, have their home opener at Municipal Auditorium on Saturday.
It was about this city. And I got in, I listened for a few weeks, maybe about a month, and then I started talking to some people. And this city Nashville was so good to me personally and my family, and when we moved here, and all those that came along with us, I'm just trying to give back and make it better, and it's kind of a thanks Nashville. So what happens along the way is, and now I find out that what the Cats actually were doing while we were busy,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to walk back there, go for a late evening walk or run or something like that, and see guys with uniforms going into our indoor. I don't know who it was, but I mean, when you sell out for 7 or 8 years in a row, or average 10,000 fans at Bridgestone, and so there's a lot of diehard original Cat fans that are out there, and we all know the demographics of Nashville has changed, but just those people alone are so excited to bring this back. So there's a lot of work that's gone involved. Here we go. We're kicking the thing off, tomorrow night at 7:30 at Municipal, and everybody's worked really hard. I mean, you should see this dance team and Cool Cat and everything that people remember. It's entertainment.
No, Eli Gold, Lindsey Rowley, our friend from the Valley Sports broadcast, everybody.
It's just been Greg Pogue. Greg's behind a lot of that stuff, and so we just had people come out of the woodworks to just to help. And so now I got some guys that Mac and I've worked with before. A couple of guys that were formerly with the Titans organization that deserve game balls right now for what they've done to get this thing up and running and going. So it's just more fun for Nashville, and we're excited about it. We had a short little training camp, and we were fortunate to be able to have our training camp at Lipscomb Academy. They're generous to give us their facility because we're startup. We didn't have any of the old hats or any of the other stuff. So it's been really fun, and so we got some cool stuff ahead. We're going up to F&M Bank Arena in Clarksville on Armed Forces Day, and we're going to do a huge donation to Fort Campbell, and so that now dovetails to when it's all said and done, the charities that are going to benefit from the effort that everybody's put in. Again, giving back to Nashville, that's what we're doing. There's some really needy charities.
Coach, I live right next door to Roy's Meat Service in East Nashville, and I know Roy's is a very heavy part about what you guys are doing. I go there once or twice a week at least, and Jeff Roy and his family have been part of that community, pillars of it for generations.
Killer quesadilla.
I had one 2 days ago. I did.
They're phenomenal.
But I'm going to let Greg talk on that. We didn't want you to talk, but now we just opened the window for you.
We did. You declined. Maybe Coach Fish has different thoughts.
So we'll talk food, okay, and so you bring in me, right?
Well, I guess my question on it is how much of that and that association with Roy's has been a part of that community for so long, how much of that is tying in the old Nashville that the Nashville Cats were a part of, that the Titans were originally a part of, with now what Nashville is, and kind of blending those things together?
What he said, right? I mean, that's it. That's it. Jeff Roy's Meat Service is part of that. And the newer part of it, the older part of it, we can all get along, right? I mean, the new Nashville is hitting us right in the face every day, okay? That's happening, right? But we do want to be a part of what built this to begin with. And Roy's Meat Service and so many different places like that are iconic Nashville things. And I'll tell you this, they did training camp, lunch and dinner. They're feeding our players this week. We got a team. Come down at 4 o'clock this afternoon. We'll feed you. Just you guys, not everybody. I got y'all this 100,000 watt blow.
Careful on media. I like free food. All right, that's a big thing for media people.
They're doing all of our catering. So we have the best fed pro football team, and we have the best fed media and the best fed VIPs. They're doing for our VIPs. Anybody wants to buy a dasher board, you get Wagyu beef tomorrow
How about that?
at the VIP thing. So yeah, Jeff Roy, they've just been wonderful partners.
Buck, you know the background on the quesadilla?
No.
Okay.
Educate me. Because I'm trying to figure out how to be less offensive as a transplant.
Have you heard of Elvis Presley?
I have.
Okay. He would send runners from Memphis up here to get quesadillas and take them down hot.
You're kidding me.
No.
There's a story right now in the Nashville scene. The one that's been on the stand, I guess it goes out cycle. Shout out to good friend Bill Freeman, the owner of the Nashville scene, on the quesadilla. The quesadilla, the very first Mexican restaurant 30, 40 years ago, that quesadilla, there's a red and a green chili. The granddaughter, Jeff buys all of the ingredients. She cooks that at her home and brings it there for it to be. So that Elvis, with Colonel Tom Parker, it would send out, and Elvis had to have these things every time he came to town. And there's actually a story on that very quesadilla in the Nashville scene right now.
If you'd have told me we'd done quesadilla, cats, Titans, draft, all in the same segment with all of these different casts of characters here in studio with us, I wouldn't have believed you. This is probably the most well-rounded segment that we've had in the history of the show. Gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping by. Again, thenashvillecats.com, a free event before kickoff tomorrow, a free block party for people who want to go to the Cats game at Municipal Auditorium at 5:30. Music, food, drink, fun, games. It's going to be an electric thing. We're an entertainment city, and they're bringing back a really cool part of that's cool for native Nashvillians and, for us transplants to start to acclimate ourselves as well,
Don't look at me when you say that.
I need to look at somebody, all right? I got to look at a lot of people around here. Relax. Coach Jeff Fisher, Coach Dave McGinnis, Greg Pogue, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll wrap the show. Coming up next, I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone.